All right. Can you folks hear me all right?
Yep.
Excellent. And I need to pass the host back to Ari. Okay, great. All righty. So shall we get started then? Greetings, everyone. Okay, well, welcome one and all to the Microbit at Parallax presentation. Today, we're going to do a quick overview for any of you who may not be familiar with the Parallax Microbit resources. For those of you who are familiar with them and have been using them in your classroom, we'll talk about some new things, both just recently available as well as some in the pipeline stuff. And then we'll finish it out with upcoming events. Now, what we'll be talking about today is the resources for the Microbit on its own, resources for the Microbit electronics kit called the What's a Microcontroller with Python for the Microbit kit, and also for the Cyberbot robot, which has a Microbit on it. Looking at it a little more in a little bit more detail, we'll start with the Microbit and then talk about the Cyberbot, what's a microcontroller, the available educator resources. And Aristides, for some reason, my screen just froze. So if I drop out, let me know. I'll keep talking and hope it unfreezes. We'll look at educator resources, previous PD workshops, and because there are some available on YouTube. Then we'll go into what's new. Now, what's new and newly available are there's a new seminar for teachers that are using the Microbit on its own, or would like to start with the Microbit on its own before I came back. Before moving to an electronics or robotics kit with Microbit. And then we'll look at the educator resources available. And we'll talk about how the supply chain crisis is affecting availability of the Microbit and how we're keeping the kits available to you for purchase. In the development land, things that are in the pipeline are Microbit has a new python.microbit.org has a new editor. There's a make code extension that's in progress for the Cyberbot. There's a process control textbook that's underway. And in conjunction with that, there are some Cyberscope upgrades so that you can have a nice little data display with the Cyberscope for process control experiments. And then we'll look at what's microcontroller with Python and the Microbit, what's up and what is still to come. As far as upcoming events, we just set up our workshop schedule for winter and spring of 2022. So we've got a couple of Cyberbot workshops and a few What's Microcontroller with Python and the Microbit workshops as well. I'll show you the new events page, and then we'll move on to questions and discussion. I hope as many of you as you can stay on for that. I have some questions for you, and I'm sure you'll have some questions for me too. All right, so this is an overview page, and before I forget, I want to give you all a link to the slides. Okay, so let's see, where's chat? Okay, so here's a link to the slideshow. And you're all welcome to look at that directly, especially if you're having any challenges with the smaller size screen. This slideshow, I think this is probably going to be the only link we post in the YouTube recording of this presentation, because this slideshow is full of links And so basically, if you are rewatching the YouTube version of this and you say, oh, look, Andy just clicked this product link for the What's a Microcontroller kit and followed it, and I want to go there too, all you'll have to do is basically open up this slideshow with the link I just shared, and then go to slide 3 in this case, and follow the link yourself. So I'm hoping that that helps keep everything organized and make sure that you can get back to anything you saw during the presentation. All right, so Parallax has microbits available, and so there's a microbits product link. And then we have, I made a full list of online workbooks for students. And so there's one for Make Code, one for Make It Code It. And I'll be talking a little bit more about these two later. And there's an entire pair of YouTube videos on it. Then there are Parallax online workshops, and cyber.org also has teaching materials for the microbit on its own. The same applies to educators' resources. And for the microbit, there's also a couple of workshops that I recently did with the Granite School District that are posted to YouTube. And so you can follow any of those links. Now, the pattern is also the same for the Cyberbot and the electronics What's a Microcontroller kit. So for example, if you wanted to look at the Cyberbot, you could just follow the link to the Cyberbot. And then once you're there, you get a description and pricing and quantity and et cetera. Except for that, my computer stopped responding again. Well, I was going to scroll down the page and mention that there are some resources. There's a resources tab where you can follow links to resources for the Cyberbot, and also that there is along the bottom. Here we go. I'm back. Along the bottom. So basically, you get the product description, but if you go to downloads, there's a lot of resources that you can get to. And then there are also variations. For example, here's the Cyberbot with no microbit down at the bottom of the page in the related products area. And pardon me, my computer, for whatever reason, just decided to start to stop responding and wait for a minute before it resumes. I'm going to try to, can you hear me?
Yeah, Andy, I'm going to stop my video. I find when my students all having their smiling faces, it slows my computer.
Oh, well, thank you, Mike. That could be the case. All right, we'll try that then with everybody mostly muted on their video. Okay, thank you. Okay, so so there's resources for all of the different product lines that Parallax has, and it's the same pattern. You can look at the product, the online workbooks, the educator resources, and the YouTube recordings of the previous workshop. And that's all on one slide for you to go and follow the links. I want to emphasize that for finding things that are microbit, if you're, for example, if you have some grant money and you're looking for Microbit Kits, there's I put a link on slide 4 that takes you to all things microbit that are available at Parallax. And anytime you see add to cart, that means that the product is in stock. And then read more. If you follow one of those links, you will find that that product is not in stock, and there may be some more information. So on that note, like if I were to go back and follow this Microbit 2.0 link, we can see here that that it's out of stock. And looking more closely at the product description, there's a note. We believe that the Microbit is having similar problems to what we've seen at Parallax, where a particular part became unavailable due to the supply chain things you've been seeing and hearing about on the news. And in the case of the Microbit, it may be unavailable until April. So don't hold your breath on getting Microbit 2.0 modules. However, we have done a lot of work to make sure that we have enough Microbit 1.5 modules, so that to make sure that we can continue to supply you with Cyberbot and What's a Microcontroller kits. So if we go back to look at the All Things Microbit page, my computer just froze again. But you can see if you look at the center of the screen, the Microbit 1.5 Club Bundle is one of the kits that is still available. That's a 10-pack of Microbits, and hopefully my computer will resume any time now. Sorry about the delay, folks. All right, here we are. Okay, so as you can see, that the Cyberbot is still available. The What's a Microcontroller kit is still available. The Microbit 1.5 kits are still available, and so you can continue to get those. And if, for example, you decide you want to get a Cyberbot, but you don't necessarily want to, if you're interested in waiting for the Microbit 2.0, you could, for example, get the, where is it? Oh, I guess it's I'll hazard following the link. All right, sorry, folks, my computer froze yet again.
I'm posting links to specific products in the chat. So which one are you trying to point to?
So what I wanted to highlight was just that there's a Cyberbot robot kit that comes without the Microbit, and that would be for folks who already have Microbits in their classroom,
oh, sure.
Or are wanting to get robots because they have grant money available, but want to wait for the Microbit 2.0, which would be a separate purchase later. So those are some options that are open to you.
There, I posted the link in the chat.
Oh, that seems to have released my computer as well.
Good deal.
I think I'll try to stay in the slides and open as few pages as possible here. So basically, so here is a link to the Microbit related tutorials at Parallax. Now, when you get there, you're only going to see 2 tiles. But when you open the tiles, you will see basically chapters or booklets under each of the categories here. And so these are on slide 6, the student workbook resources that are Microbit related at parallax.com. Now, there is also teacher related resources at So learn.parallax.com is where the student workbook books live. And learn.parallax.com is also where the teacher resources live. And you can follow these links, and we have everything from standard alignment matrices to teacher's guides to summative homeworks, quizzes, and exercises and questions and projects with solution sets that are only available to teachers. And so basically you'll sign up at learn.parallax.com after following one of these links. Just scroll to the bottom and you'll see you can email education@parallax.com and say, hey, I'm a teacher, please send me a link, and make sure to email us from your teacher educator email account so we can verify you're a teacher and we can get you started. And then once you sign in, you'll be able to see links to more resources. So that is a kind of just a quick overview on what we have for the Microbit. And now let's go to some of the what's new items. These two YouTube videos that I've got linked here, I think are particularly important, especially for anybody who is using the Cyberbot or the What's a Microcontroller electronics kit in their classroom. What this does is it takes a deep dive into the microbit.org educator and student resources. All the different available resources are examined here, and some of those include the curriculum that is available. There's curriculum available at makecode.microbit.org and at the Microbit Make It Code It site, which I think is, let's see here. Make It Code It is microbit.org. Oh, that's the lesson. Sorry, that's the teacher resources. Make It Code It for the students is microbit.org/projects/make-it-code it. And I managed to freeze my browser again. Let's see if I can. Say, Aristides, can you switch me over to Andy Lindsay, the other Andy Lindsay? Well, okay, maybe we don't need to do that. I've got the computer back. Okay, so what I'm going to do is try to close any other open browsers. And then I'm going to actually close and reopen this browser in hopes that I think I have some email open down on another screen. Okay, so let's just go ahead and restart. My browser. Yeah, we may want to switch over to
yeah, I think you can just switch if you want to share the screen from the other computer.
Okay, let me see if I can do that. Okay, share screen. Cannot share while the other participant is sharing. So I'll have to stop the share here once it lets me have my mouse back. Okay, my mouse is back. Stop share. Okay, so let's try it on this end. Okay, so let's see how this little computer does. So we were talking about the YouTube videos, And so these YouTube videos are really great because they take a deep dive into the Microbit only resources. So this is for teachers who are teaching only with the Microbit or using the Microbit only before adding it to, say, the Cyberbot or what's a microcontroller kit. Some of the resources we spend a lot of time here just going through the microbit.org website and looking at the curriculum for teachers, the workbooks and the ways that that students can use those resources to learn programming, computer science, sensors, et cetera. And then we also went through a list of what the Microbit only resources are at the learn.parallax.com website. And so, for example, if this is a link to writing Microbit programs. So this is a step-by-step tutorial for learning the basics of Python coding with just the Microbit. So solving math problems, making decisions, and et cetera. Then Computer Microbit Talk is another example where on learn.parallax.com, the students can go through and learn how to interact with the Microbit through a terminal window that's part of the python.microbit.org editor. All right. Any questions so far? All right, well, folks, you can unmute yourself and jump in if you have any questions. So, so then the next what's new. So, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a slide. So this, for those of you who have been teaching electronics with the Microbit, we have been, Stephanie in particular at Parallax has been flowing Nicole Litterer's draft material to the educator only resource area in the learn.parallax.com site. And so when you go there, if you've attended previous workshops or are using the What's a Microcontroller kit, you'll notice that there's additional material there that maybe you didn't see maybe a month ago. And I put it, oh, go ahead, Stephanie.
I was just going to say that currently we have a worksheet and a test bank for every chapter that's up. And we do have one teacher's guide that is posted, and there will be a teacher's guide for each section in the coming weeks.
Thank you. Okay, and so that wraps up the new things that are currently available. Now let's talk about some of the exciting new stuff that's in the pipeline. Here's one from the Microbit Education Foundation. It's the alpha editor for the Microbit. And so if we go to that site, it's going to tell us, hey, this is the alpha editor, and that we want to get feedback. And there's a little feedback button right here. Now, the alphabet editor has all the same features as the editor you're using. So this is probably a familiar editor for those of you who are teaching with the Cyberbot or What's a Microcontroller. But this new editor, it's got all the same features as the version 2 editor. With the addition currently, well, I mean, some of the additions are that there's a quick tutorial type information for learning about, say, loops in the Explore section. There's a reference section where it talks about all the different APIs that the Microbit has available. So, for example, sleep is a command that you might be familiar with, and it talks more about that in the reference section. But you can also look at files. So for example, if you were to use the Cyberbot module, and I'm trying to think of how to get there quickly. On my other computer, I had something with a module included, but I don't here. But basically what you can do is you can actually edit modules in this pane. So if we had the Cyberbot module or the Cyberscope module, which are things like that you would import when you're working with the robot or the electronics kit, you could actually open up the module and view what's in it and even edit it. So that's one of the improvements that's coming in the alpha editor. And we expect to see this become like the version 3 editor this coming summer. And so that's in the pipeline. And the version 2 editor is going to continue on for a while beyond when alpha becomes version 3. And that'll hopefully give us some time to update our documentation so that by the time the version 2 editor goes away for good, we'll be ready to fully support the version 3 editor. This one's really exciting. Unfortunately, I don't know. I don't think I want to try to demonstrate it because I had the demonstration files on the other computer. So we'll see if maybe we can come back to this because it is very exciting. Basically, cyber.org is working on a MakeCode block programming environment for the Cyberbot. It does work, but it's still early in its development. So what we're doing right now, both Parallax and Cyber.org are going through the blocks that they have for the Cyberbot and testing each one to make sure it works as intended. And once some of those bugs are ironed out, we'd be open to some early adopters who are GitHub savvy to try it out themselves and make suggestions and report bugs on the GitHub repository for these blocks. Now, because this is MakeCode, you can also switch over to programming. You can hit the JavaScript. You can hit this drop down and choose either JavaScript or Microsoft's version of MicroPython and continue editing the text version. This also has some interesting virtual debugging tools that you can use to step through the program and see what's happening. So that's some pretty exciting developments, basically having the blocks, opening it up to JavaScript and MicroPython all in one system. And I'm not sure when this is going to be available, but the next step is going to be, well, the current step is basically making sure it's working pretty well. And then after that, we would like some earlier adopters. So I'm going to email everybody after this session is over. And if you are interested in trying it out and making some reports on GitHub, go ahead and reply to me and let me know that, and I'll add you to a list and let you know when we are ready to have you start kicking the tires. The North Carolina State University, their technology infrastructure lab staff is working on two things. The first is a process control textbook. Some of you may be familiar with the original basic stamp process control textbook by Marty Hebel, and what the North Carolina State group is doing is they're adapting that to the Microbit and to a kit similar to what you saw with the What's a Microcontroller kit. And they're also adapting the Cyberscope. So the current Cyberscope, when you're using it to take measurements with on circuits that you've built on your breadboard. So here's an example right here of building a circuit on the What's a Microcontroller breadboard. And in addition to just learning how an indicator light is part of an invention, you get to actually take measurements of the circuit and understand how the electricity flows through the circuit in a more in-depth way than most other tutorials by using the Cyberscope measurement equipment. And so just a quick example of what that looks like is here. So basically, after loading a script that includes both measurement and whatever you want to make happen on your breadboard, what you get is you can connect to the microbit, and then the microbit will send measurements. In this case, it's a 2-channel oscilloscope that's sending a sine wave and an RC decay wave. And then other features. So, and it's showing the features that you can change the time base and make the graph align with trigger lines. So you see it just shifted over there. And then it also has a built-in ammeter, voltmeter, and ohm meter. And so these are things that you use with the microbit, not having to buy any special equipment, just having your microbit and the What's a Microcontroller kit, and you can get to take all these measurements that usually involve expensive lab equipment in a specialized classroom. Okay, so let's see here. Out of full screen. Now, the North Carolina State folks have made some amazing additions to the Cyberscope. So what they have is, instead of just clicking controls on the Cyberscope, you can actually use your script to define how the Cyberscope's measurement settings can be. And then once you've done that in your script, then then you can get the measurements displayed. And in this case, they're just showing the oscilloscope. And they're showing that after the script did the initial settings of the oscilloscope, that you can still go through and set the controls to, for example, take faster or slower, a higher or lower number of samples per second, and to increase or decrease the number of volts per vertical division, just as an example here. This is possibly going to be the new look for the Cyberscope, and it's pretty exciting. They've also added another channel and made it much more robust, so it can take higher speed measurements. And they've also removed all risk of the tab freezing up as you're taking measurements due to any kind of data overload. Coming up for What's a Microcontroller, we are currently through, basically we have the getting started, understanding measurement units, an indicator light, a push button, and servo control. And there's a lot of material in each of these chapters. It starts out with just the basic, what is it? How does it work in an invention? But there's also lots of extra material for taking measurements with the Cyberscope and stuff. And the next one I'm working on, and I'll add this link here shortly, is measuring the potentiometer input for the sake, that's a dial you can twist for the sake of your inventions, and also learning more about how it works and the electronics inside it. And then we're going to continue on with some of the other parts in the kits that are used in inventions, and then also some more digging a little bit more deeply into measuring certain electronic properties, like the waves that make tones, and the RC decay that you saw on the first Cyberscope video that I showed here. All righty. So last but not least, we have quite a number of upcoming events. this next year, 2022. Let's see, it looks like this is the one that you're at right now. So there's also going to be on February 3rd, a BOE Shield bot for Arduino hands-on workshop. Now, let's see, I'll go ahead and list them all, and then I'll talk about how these workshops work. On February 14th, 16th, and 18th, we've got a What's a Microcontroller workshop. So this will be a What's New with the BOE Shield bot, the one in on February 3rd. It's kind of like this What's New with the Microbit one, but for the Arduino. Then after that, same month, we'll have a What's a Microcontroller hands-on workshop, a full-on Arduino Shield bot hands-on workshop, a Cyberbot hands-on workshop, and then a second What's a Microcontroller workshop. And something to note about this April 25, 27, 29 one is that we're trying it a little later in the day. So if you're a teacher and you were interested in attending the 1 p.m. Pacific time What's a Microcontroller workshop in February, but couldn't make it due to teaching a class at that time or something like that, there is one that starts at, what time does that start at? It's 3 to 4:30 p.m. as opposed to 1 to 2:30 p.m. for the other one. So we tried to give you some flexibility there. All right, so cyber.org has collaborated with us on a lot of this, and we are Parallax, and thank you for coming and seeing the overview, what's new, and hearing about our upcoming events. And Stephanie, can you please paste the category/events link into the chat? I see Aristidez is there. Thank you. All right. So now on to the questions and answers portion of the workshop. Folks, if you have any questions, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay, well, I have a few questions for you. And so maybe this can get the discussion started. So the first one is, all right, so let's say that you have a Cyberbot robot. That's the kind of thing where students are going to build, after they're going to put the robot together. There's a lot of small screws and nuts and a printed circuit board, a chassis, motors, et cetera, that they're all going to be attaching together. And then they're going to be building circuits using real parts like resistors and whatnot. How, in your mind, does that couple with make code? So what we have done historically is said, okay, well, that's kind of a more advanced thing. So instead of make code, we do it with Python because we expect that it's a little bit closer to high school level, though a number of junior highs are using it. And so we would normally have a text-based language. How many of you as teachers have been waiting for a graphical language to use with the Cyberbot? That's my question for you. Okay, so I'm not hearing anybody chiming in. Has anybody left?
There's nothing on chat.
Yeah.
Andy, I have to say I have not purchased the Cyberbot yet. The Microbit is interesting, and now with multiple languages available, I plan to grab a couple Microbits.
Okay. Mike, I would strongly recommend checking out those 2 YouTube videos I mentioned earlier. They are on slide 8. So these 2 guys right here, definitely watch them. There's a lot of available resources for the Microbit just on its own. You've got 3 programming languages, blocks, or well, 4 if you think about Python as having 2 variations. So you've got block programming, JavaScript programming, and Python programming in makecode.microbit.org. And then you've got, let's see, you've got also at python.microbit.org, you've got the Microbit Education Foundation's version of Python. See, can someone repost the slide link? I had to punch out and come back, so I lost the link.
I'm on it.
Thank you.
There.
All right.
And we have a comment saying that at the university level, they prefer Python coding over MakeCode.
Yes, and that absolutely makes sense. What I'm hoping to get, or what I was hoping to get, is just kind of a gauge of if there was any interest in the block coding with Cyberbot in the classroom. So that's this guy right here being able to code in blocks. Now, granted, you could also switch over and code in Python, but you know, the resource or in JavaScript, but the resources for the JavaScript are quite a ways down the road for the Cyberbot. The emphasis would be on the block programming here, tutorial wise. Okay, well, please do feel free to email me if you have any thoughts on that. I just basically wanted to make sure not to miss an opportunity if it seemed like there was a number of teachers that had been waiting for block programming for their Cyberbot. If not, we have Python, very well supported, by the way.
And you're probably aware that I'm already using block coding with the Flip. And Python got introduced in my microcontroller courses because of the Pico, the Raspberry Pi Pico.
Okay. So that, and again, this is at the college level, yes?
Yes, at the college level. And when I do my seminar for the high school teachers, I'll be using all of those technologies. The Blockly with the Flip, Python. I actually have a pin compatible board to make a Pico into a Flip.
Oh, neato.
So that tic-tac-toe board that you have, that was programmed in Blockly, but I actually have one now running using the Pico and plug and play with the Flip.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I see what you mean, that with your adapter board, making it pin compatible, that you can do something on the Flip and then switch over to the Pico and do it with Python. Very interesting. The Propeller Flip that Mike is referring to, by the way, is at parallax.com. So this is the Propeller Flip, and it is so named because the top is just an empty printed circuit board. But if you look underneath, there's all the parts that make up the system that you write programs for in Blockly or Propeller C. And if you're interested in resources for that, check the downloads, and it'll point you in a number of directions, both downloads and resource links like Blockly Prop Solo, the online programming, Propeller C tutorials, and etc.
Have you ever had a project where you ran out of I/O pins? The Flip is your savior.
Yes, indeed. Now, going to learn.parallax.com, I have another question for you. I meant to ask this a few workshops ago, but we are finally making it here now. So taking a look at the What's a Microcontroller tutorials, there is, like if we're in push buttons, there's a pretty well-established format where, for example, if we're here in the build and test the push buttons category, we have script and tests, how it works, and then we have some additional subjects. But in the how it works, it's usually appended by a try this section. So this is the section where the students actually put their hands on the keyboard and modify a program that they preloaded in the previous section, which in this case is script and tests. So in script and tests, it's pretty self-explanatory. They load the script and they run some tests to see, in this case, if they press the button and they get a 1, or if they let go of the button and they get a 0. Now, how it works implicitly has the try this down there. And then also the more information, in this case, input registers and decisions, has, in addition to it, a your turn, where there's either a more complicated problem that the students have to type in because it's just a picture, it's not provided code like the script and tests, or a challenge of, hey, here's the problem and it's up to you to solve it, and your teacher might have the solution if you're stuck, which we try to be very careful about not making it too hard to solve. And so what we have on this in the contents here is just that top level, but there's a your turn inside it, or the how it works, which also has a try this. And I'm wondering, is that okay? Or do we want to actually see for every single one how it works, try this, new subject, input registers, and your turn? Does anybody have any suggestions for that that thought? Well, I'll take silence as assent. So we'll just continue to use it like this. Okay, so Wayne's okay with the way it is. Thank you very much, Wayne, for chiming in. And if anybody else has an opinion on that, especially if you're watching the YouTube video later and you'd like to have your vote heard, you can email learn@parallax.com, and we will take your suggestions and keep a running tally of if there's any interest in adjusting this or leaving it as is. Okay, so do we have any other questions or comments that you'd like to share?
Andy, I have a, can you go back to the events?
Yes.
Slide, because if anybody is interested in the class, what's a microcontroller with a microbit in Python for February 14, we will need people to get enrolled as soon as possible there.
Oh, yes. Sorry. I believe that the sign up deadline is 5 weeks before the course starts. But act today, because also if we have to cap it off, just make sure that you've already signed up. So, and then Stephanie, I believe, has posted this in. I'll see if I can. Okay, here you go.
Yes.
And incidentally, this is the all upcoming category, which in addition to education has the P2 stuff. And then you can, for example, refine it to Propeller 2 events or educators workshops using these nice buttons up here. This is a nice page that was created recently for having our upcoming workshops. And you can also go and conveniently find previous workshops by clicking the past events. And in many cases, you can, I believe, also see the YouTube recordings. Yes. So here are the YouTube recordings for the previous What's a Microcontroller Electronics with Microbit, which is the What's a Microcontroller workshop. So you can look at the videos And then if you go to one of those videos, there will also be below the video. Well, okay, so we're going to get an ad for Grammarly in this case. And so once you're in the video and you're watching, if you saw that I saw and heard that a link was pasted in, those links are all right here along with the time that the link was pasted in. So you can say, oh, look, I'm at 27 minutes, and I don't know if there's one at 27 minutes, but like if we go to 45 minutes and 47 seconds, I will have pasted in a link right around then. So that'll make it so that hopefully you can follow along in another way if you're unable to attend a given workshop. Okay. So another thing about the Cyberbot, and that I forgot to mention earlier, is that if you have a it does not matter if you have a Microbit 1.5 or a Microbit 2.0. They work in these kits. So we made sure that the tutorials are compatible with both versions of the Microbit. And in fact, for What's a Microcontroller, Nicole Litterer, who was doing some of the teacher materials, was using a Microbit 1.5, and I was using a Microbit 2.0. And we didn't realize that until way into the project. So there's been a fair amount of testing to make sure that you can use either one. And so the only difference between the 1.5 and the 2.0, there are actually a couple of differences looking at the features. Okay, so the Microbit 2.0 has a lot of cool stuff that the Microbit 1.5 also has. The little LED display, the push buttons, the edge connector. On the back, it has a built-in Bluetooth radio. It has, of course, the reset button, a battery plug, and all that. These are all, and the USB connector. These are all common to the 1.5 and the 2.0. Likewise, with the built-in compass, the built-in accelerometer, the built-in, compass, accelerometer, there's temperature sensing, you've got your pins, and I think that's mostly it. Then the things that the 2.0 have that the 1.5 doesn't have is an extra touch sensor, a mic, a built-in speaker, and let's see, and then also the 2.0 has a little bit more memory. But again, for the sake of the Cyberbot and the What's a Microcontroller kits, it does not matter whether you have a 1.5 or a 2.0. You can do all the tutorials with either one. And let's see. Another thing that I was thinking about talking about during the overview was just the Cyberbot. For those of you who have not tried Microbit Kits at Parallax, the Cyberbot's really neat because you can write your code and then you can see a physical manifestation of that code you wrote. And so in this case, we're writing a script to make the robot go forward and then hang a left. Now, by adding in how to repeat a group of statements a number of times using the for statement, we can take that one forward and turn left and cause it to repeat 4 times. And there's been a valuable computer science and programming lesson that was conveyed and realized by the students as they're working through that. Now, in addition to just pure navigation, you also get the opportunity to build sensor circuits like the whisker touch sensors and like the light sensor. So this computer has been rock solid through the whole presentation. I think I might use it next time. We also have an infrared detector that allows the robot to, with your script, travel around and see obstacles before it bumps into them. Now, because of the fact that the Microbit has cool things like a compass and a built-in radio and accelerometer, this is an example using the built-in radio to so right here, there's a Microbit. Okay, so there's a Microbit right here, and it's connected to the computer, and it is radio broadcasting to these other robots that also have Microbits. And so then the Microbit that's connected to the computer receives messages that are typed in through a terminal window. And then it forwards those messages to the entire classroom's robots, and they all do the same maneuver. One thing that this opens up is we show how to do that on an open channel, and on learn.parallax.com in the Cyberbot, after those after some programming basics, after learning navigation and then navigating with sensors, there is also I believe that navigation control from a keyboard is where that is what that video used to make it work. Because of the fact that we're doing it unencrypted, that opens up a number of cybersecurity lessons, which you can follow up with. And that takes the Cyberbot a lot further than, say, the BOE Shield bot or the BOBot or the Activity bot, because of the fact that the Microbit, you don't have to buy an extra radio or an extra tilt sensor or an extra compass. They're all built into the Microbit. And so that allowed us to add some really fun activities after the basic sensor navigation stuff. And that's pretty much what I wanted to show you. I can also show you just a real quick little blurb from What's a Microcontroller, just a little added bit about how we're trying to really help get across electrical and electronic understanding. And in this case, what we're doing is we're saying, hey, as you build the circuit, so we start with the parts in the upper left, and as you put a wire in, that has an effect on the schematic. And as you put the light in the breadboard with it, it also has an effect on the schematic. And by seeing the circuit being built up as the schematic grows, that's another way of getting across the idea of the relationship between the parts, the connections that are made, and the schematics that describe them that people see later on if they work as electronics, or if they work in a field that uses schematics to understand how a circuit is made. Okay, so with that, that's all I've got. Did that bring up any other questions or ideas for the attendees that are still with us? You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
We are in 1 hour in, and I can stop the recording.
That sounds good. Go ahead.